Welcome to Ethos Effect podcast.
Welcome to the Ethos Effect podcast. After building and learning from failures,
We discovered our ethos and leveraged it
to scale, sell, and build again our seven-figure businesses.
whether you're starting out or leveling up.
This podcast is your source for innovation and lasting impact. Welcome to the Ethos Effect podcast, and I really liked this next one.
Yeah, we had a great conversation, very kind of thought-provoking on some of the differences and changes within organizations, particularly with Gen Z, millennials, boomers, all kind of commingling in the same workspace and different things they expect from their jobs.
I think our listeners are going to find this show incredibly relevant. And the reason I say that is because so many businesses are focused on sales and leadership and growth and scale. And her focus, Karla Muniz, Chief People Officer of IMA Medical Group, has always been on the voice of the people. And I think that is, as long as that role is strategic, working with the numbers, with the data, bringing strategy, that is something a lot of businesses miss. And today they're going to get a ton of value out of what she says.
But before we jump into the episode, we just want to ask you guys to please like, share, subscribe so you can get notified of future episodes.
Without further ado, here is Karla Muniz. Welcome to the Ethos Effect podcast. I'm your host, Chelsea Rikus, here with my husband, Donovan Rikus, and today we have a very special guest. We have Karla Muniz, the Chief People Officer of IMA Medical Group. She has an amazing background, very robust experience, 18 years in the human resources field, knows all about human capital, employee retention, and building a great culture within business. So today we're going to talk with Karla. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is wonderful.
We'd love for you to start just, let's tell our listeners, who is Karla?
Okay. So high level overview. I have grown up here in Central Florida. I'm a native of Venezuela. My parents relocated to the U.S. While I was a child. And I went to middle school here, high school, Lake Mary High, UCF for my undergrad, and Rollins College for my master's. And as I was working while I was in college, just really stumbled upon HR on an internship as an HR assistant. And I tell you, in a matter of 30 days, I knew that that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
Wow.
And very quickly, just beg to learn the ropes from a recruitment standpoint. Just felt that identifying people's talent was a natural knack. And just was very inspired by having that ability to offer somebody a job. And people don't forget the person that hired you. So it felt really good to make someone's day. Just really love HR. And that's what I did once I graduated college. Just started to work as a recruiter in healthcare. And then also very quickly was just enamored by the healthcare industry. Healthcare is complex. Healthcare is difficult. Healthcare is a burnout for many, many people.
Yeah.
But miracles happen every day in healthcare. And although I knew I didn't want to be a caregiver, someone that, take care of patients day in and day out, I felt that working in HR, identifying the talent that was going to take care of those patients was going to be my way of making a difference in healthcare. And so I was able to work with amazing mentors from the get-go at the beginning of my career who just really gave me opportunities. And one of my leaders moved to work for Florida Hospital, at the time Florida Hospital.
Right.
And she said, come alongside me. Let's go make a difference, at one of the hospitals there. And I tell you, that's where I grew up. Because I stayed at Advent Health for 17 years.
Wow.
And I say I grew up because I started, as a generalist, and then from there moving to a manager, director, executive director. And I was able to work for some of our hospitals. And then from there work in just large scale strategies. So as I was exiting the organization, I was working in strategy integration, working really closely with IT on implementing technology that was going to impact people. Yeah. So lots of change management. IMA Medical Group is my current employer, and I still just love healthcare. And the mission of this organization, much smaller company.
Okay.
IMA Medical Group has a little over 500 employees. And, they offer me an opportunity to come lead their human capital strategies. And working for a mid-sized company, you can really see and feel much quicker the impact and the fruits of your labor. And so I've been there for 1.5 years. I have an amazing team, highly productive, super motivated. And for the past 1.5 years, I've been able to focus on just a cultural transformation. And at the same time, just making sure that we elevate the employee experience so that way we can continue to attract really top talent and retain top talent. One thing, not only is not industry specific, healthcare, along many other industries, are really struggling when it comes to attracting top talent.
And developing them.
Yeah, and developing them. And so it is something that I'm passionate about, making sure that our employer value proposition is something that we can really stand behind.
Yeah.
And it is a place where people thrive. So that's Karla in a nutshell.
I love it. So when you talk about cultural transformation within a business, and so a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs, and they're on different parts of their journey. Like some of our guests too, have created multi-million-dollar businesses. We had the founder of Teladoc on here. We've got new entrepreneurs starting out, and then we've got a ton of business professionals as well that are like you, high up in organizations, really driving strategy, making an impact. A lot of the times within the entrepreneur world, right? Like you're building a business, things are going really well, and you're scaling and you're growing, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, here we are. Now we've got a bunch of employees, and what is culture? How do we do this? So when you talk about culture transformation, it sounds like a lot of the times there's a culture that exists that maybe isn't so great. If people, our listeners, are finding themselves looking around at their company culture like, uh-oh, I got some work to do, where do they start?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. I'm passionate about this conversation. I'll start by saying this. And many of us who've attended an MBA program and things like that, well-versed on Peter Drucker. But Peter Drucker wrote, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Right. And with that said, I report directly to the CEO of my company, and this is a woman that truly is very much aligned and attuned on this passion about creating a culture where people thrive, they're seen, they're heard, and things like that. So that's really nice to be able to work with somebody that is truly a partner. But what I will say to your audience is the CEO sort of sets the culture. And they are sort of like the spokesperson in terms of what are the behaviors and what are the attitudes and what are the things that you are willing to put up with and are not willing to put up with. With that said, the executive team, the CEO may set the culture, the tone, the language, the traditions, and things like that. But culture happens every day in the hallways, conversations that are had, interactions that are had. Then that's where you live it. It's just this thing that just lives throughout. And now, after post-COVID, a lot of that is virtual, digital. So with that said, from an HR perspective, I position myself as a business partner to my CEO and any other member of our leadership team, where I'm sort of like the keeper of the culture. So the things that are going well, the behaviors and stuff like that, we promote those. We create a spotlight on those, and we call them out, and we recognize them and want to see more of them. Those cultural activities, behaviors, things that are not so good is where we come in very directly and just make aware our management team of what's happening and how it's not going to be tolerated, or it's things that we need to change. And slowly but surely, either coach people up or out, hire for more of those behaviors that we want to continue to see. At the same time, understand that with culture, you also have the ability to fast track it by adding policies and things like that. So really looking at the policies and stuff, are these paying us dividends, or really there's gaps and things like that? And honestly, my focus for 2024, and I just wrapped up a planning session with my team, is going to be on really investing in leader development, continuing to increase our leader effectiveness, because all of us have heard the cliche that people don't leave companies, people leave their leaders. And if we're able to elevate these leaders' expertise, then it's going to make it much more difficult for our employees to say, you know what, I'm out of here. At the same time, they're able to continue to invest in people and build that culture of, I am seen, I am heard, you're developing me, you're investing in me, and things like that.
I think in the last 5 years, I mean, with COVID, but also I think with this new generation, Gen Z.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so far from what I remember starting to work when I was in my 20s. And it is really a necessity for this being seen, being heard, being appreciated. What kinds of things have you seen or implemented in your companies in the past 10 years or so to kind of change to this new generation, new thinking, like new way of just kind of communicating with your work and your employment?
Yeah, no, it's interesting that you say that. Presently, I don't think actually in the world of business have we had so many diverse generations working side by side, because the millennial generation does not look like the Generation Zers, and Generation Zers do not look at all like boomers, and they're still here, you know what I mean? So it's very interesting. The biggest thing, just to answer your question directly from a Generation Zer standpoint, this idea that you compartmentalize work life in personal life is long gone.
Yeah.
Boomers see it that way. It's like, this is my work life. And by the time that I either clock out or I close my computer and walk out, then it is my personal life. That is not the case in any way, shape, or form when it comes to a Generation Zer. Those lines blur. I could be at 9 o'clock taking a yoga class and getting all zen and everything. And by 10:30, 11 o'clock, I'm taking a call with my leader, right on video. And then at noon, I'm going to go do this. So there's this blur that just, life happens, work life and personal life, just throughout the day.
Yeah, they're integrated.
They're completely integrated. Having said that, as an employer, we want to be so sensitive on creating a culture where there is that flexibility. That if it's important for you to go do yoga at 9 o'clock, then as a leader, I'm going to be mindful of that, and let me not schedule a one-on-one at 9 o'clock or at 8:30.
Right.
A little bit harder in your industry, right? In healthcare.
In healthcare, agree. And I also, with that said, I think that there is still plenty of room for being flexible. And you do that by making sure that your policies, for example, your time off policy, is something that they still feel that they own their time.
Yes.
And it's not just a sacrifice because I work in healthcare. You know what I mean? Particularly because there's so much burnout in my industry.
And they're so mission driven.
Exactly. So we want to be so sensitive with that. With that said, I think that everyone who chooses to work in healthcare does make that personal, decision to say, this is going to be long hours and this is going to be in person, and there's going to be a certain level of sacrifices, certainly. Again, as leaders, we do have to be really mindful of our employees' needs and wants, and just really be good listeners, because if you create that environment where it is safe to speak up, then our employees are going to tell us what it is that they need. And then you have to manage, of course, within constraints of taking care of the patient, in this case, our customers, and also our employees.
So 2 years ago, within our business, I made it my number one objective to build a culture that would attract and retain employees. And every time I had read about it, every time I had heard people speak about it, it sounded very fluffy. And I'm a relatively fluffy person. Like, I like to hang in the feelings and all that. But when I really looked at like the ROI of investing in building a culture, I mean, just in the last 2 years, our business has grown so much. Our employees are truly our number one asset. Like, they attract and retain other employees for us now. And it's just like you're saying, it's this living, breathing thing. But I have to thank you, because I'm really enjoying this conversation, because you're giving tangible ways to actually implement a culture. Like, for me 2 years ago, figuring it out was like, where the heck do I start? You know, and like, you read stuff online and it's like, but you're saying like, make sure your policies actually reflect the culture that you want. It sounds like you're going to be investing in your leaders, because you realize when you have a lot of employees, that culture has to be transmitted through those leaders, because you can't talk to everybody. The CEO can't talk to everybody, right? So how do you think your role as being strategic, working alongside the CEO, is different maybe than some other HR professionals who kind of find themselves stuck and just deal with the people, keep the employees happy? How do those people transition into a strategic role?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really good question. And honestly, HR has been in a journey of doing that, the past 20 years, if you will. I wasn't necessarily in the workforce in the 90s, but when you hear about it, it's like, oh, that was personnel. And then those top talent professionals at the time said, no, we're more than just personnel. When it comes to human resources, we're here from a policy perspective and to onboard and things like that. I believe that in the past 10 years, my profession, particularly during COVID, we became critical for the business. And that's when we were able to show how important the work that we do, and how we can, if we have that business thinking, must have a seat at that table, where you should not be making decisions without hearing the voice of the employee.
Yeah.
So as an HR executive, I always say, HR, you want to position yourself at the table like you are the voice of the employee. And the way you say that is through data. So it is critical for HR to have foundational metrics that they are measuring on a monthly basis, that they're able to inform the business of these stats. How are we trending? How are we doing? How are we progressing? And tell your story through numbers, because for the finance person, for your CEO, that is critical. You can certainly balance it with some of the anecdotal, and you can certainly balance it with some of the qualitative, but in order to get the ear of my CEO, I need to come in with numbers. And with that, as a leader, it's important for me to say, I have this set metrics that we measure every month, and that these metrics I can then tie to, is it saving the company money? Turnover. Has turnover gone down? Let me do a quick dirty math here to tell you how much money we've been able to save by decreasing turnover. Or is it that we are measuring employee engagement? And with that is increasing our patients' satisfaction scores. Is there a correlation on that? So really being able to measure employee metrics, and how those impact business outcomes or business metrics.
How do you measure your own employees' engagement?
We partner with a vendor who offers us the technology to push surveys.
Okay.
So to push surveys, and we are able to. And so that's actually one area. As you were telling me, you're giving me tangible things that I can do to improve culture and measure culture. Employees are going to feel seen and heard if, before you make a business decision about pay, benefits, stuff that really impacts them, you go ask them. So pulse surveys, engagement surveys, where you're asking, do you feel recognized? Do you feel value? Do you feel like you belong? Are you thinking of leaving?
Yeah.
Just direct questions, you know what I mean? And you're measuring that consistently. You're able to do quick analysis. What is an area that, we're seeing that, they're lagging behind the rest of the company and stuff like that. And then you come in and work with that leader, set strategies in terms of, hey, this is what they said.
Mm-hmm.
And what are we going to do about that? Just, those are some basic tactics, but definitely through surveys is how we measure engagement. One thing that I tell my peers and people that I now mentor is when it comes to engagement, when it comes to any other metric, and you are setting goals, you certainly want to increase your credibility by also looking at benchmark data. Yes. So it is important to look industry specific. Right. And at times, if you're actually leading from an industry-specific standpoint, then just look at all industry. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think another thing that we've been kind of seeing and noticing, maybe with this new generation, and something that we focus on just with our business and our clients, Charlie Munger says, show me the incentives and I'll show you the results in a business. And it seems also that like this new generation and this new way of thinking, they want to be incentivized to do the right work. And that way they're kind of leading and growing into those roles, but also like actually impacting the business positively. Have you guys set up kind of different pay structures or incentives to kind of drive the behaviors that grow the business overall? And has that been something that you see people kind of asking for more, like, incentive-based compensation?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and a lot of that at times is just driven by specific roles. The sales jobs, of course, that's just basic. But yeah, more and more just some business roles, particularly when you are working in large scale change. If you're working on a specific project, I'm certainly a proponent of, hey, we're going to be implementing a new strategy or a new technology. This is going to require just some stretch assignments for people. Mm-hmm. And with that, this particular role may not be bonus eligible, but I think that if they can meet these KPIs or exceed them, they should be eligible for a bonus. So having a seat at the table as we are developing the strategy, make sure that there's enough funds for bonuses and project bonuses and things like that. Ultimately, I think the message is we have to remain nimble. Mm-hmm. As we are, agile is such a, overused word.
Like wellness.
Yeah, exactly.
Transparency.
Yeah. Right. So, I'm using nimble just not to confuse your audience to be like, it has to be an agile project. You know what I mean? That's not where I'm heading. I'm heading to just being nimble, but as you are developing the strategy, just be mindful consistently. And again, that voice at the table, the voice of the employee at the table, how are you going to compensate those people? Because you're asking them to work harder, longer hours, stretch them. Some may not even have the skill set and stuff like that. But if they do well, just give them whenever you reward them. Exactly.
I love that. When you think about your HR journey and you look back on it, are there any kind of big mistakes that you made or something that you would do differently that maybe other people who are growing into more strategic roles could learn from?
Looking back, and I'm sure that every successful leader will tell you, I learned so much from failure.
For sure.
And we've all had failure, and I can tell you that looking back, I think that in my natural, style is to be fast and passionate and let's get this done, impatient, mm-hmm. Let's get this done now and stuff like that. And just looking back, I'm a much different leader today than I was on my first role when it came to managing other people. And I say that I'm very different because I've been able to learn from mistakes about, I came in guns blazing and that was a little too harsh, too fast. Mm-hmm. But it was that motivation about, I'll show you, you hired the right person for the job, so let's go, and maybe my speed was, I was leaving bodies behind, you know what I mean? So that's what I'm trying to say. I won't consider it failure. I think that I will have enough credibility in my career, people that have worked for me or people that I've worked for, people that I work with that says, we got a lot of work done. You know what I mean? If you want to, it's funny, people that work with me for a long time, it's like, you want to get something done, give it to Karla. You know what I mean?
Love it.
But with that said, I think I am at a point in my career that I'm like, yeah, that was good, but maybe I could have been hard and soft,
yes,
fast and slow, all at the same time. So not necessarily failure, but certainly lessons that I've learned, a certain level now of maturity, maybe a certain level of sophistication.
For sure.
When it comes to, deploying strategies, being very, very mindful and strategic about change management. So again, not failures to be like, boy, that one did not work. You know what I mean? But in hindsight, to be like, if I would have just given it a little bit more finesse, if my messaging would have been a little bit more balanced, that would have been better. Did we finish the assignment?
Right.
Yes. Did we?
Is everything fine?
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
But today, just looking back, as I tackle a new strategy, a new passion project or anything, because I had amazing mentors and leaders who were able to very savvy execute that hard and soft at the same time. No, we are going to do this. And this is our deadline. But at the same time,
I'm going to make you feel good about
it. But I got you. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And things like that. So just being able to see, and that comes with time and maturity and a lot of coaching and stuff like that. That would perhaps be my biggest thing. If you talk to somebody that probably worked for me 10 years ago and somebody that works for me now, they're like, are we talking about the same
different
person?
Experiences? Well, I know we can relate to that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly you come into your role, you want to make an impact, you see the things that you want to improve, but sometimes, with what we see with some companies, they can kind of give the employees whiplash. They come in and change too much too quickly, and they're like, what's going on? We're changing this again? Like, certainly not a great experience. That's interesting.
That is. This is a really random question, but it's always on my mind.
Okay.
So ROI, return on investment in wellness programs. There's a lot of people that I've spoken with because, obviously we're in the benefits industry and wellness programs can be something that's part of a package that we implement. There are companies and advisors out there that swear that wellness programs make a difference or well-being programs make a difference. And then there's others that think the exact opposite, where they're like, there's no return on investment, like there's no way to measure it. I am of the mindset that there's likely a return on engagement, but I'm very curious with your 18 years of experience, and you've been through the wellness revolution. You're just talking about those buzzwords. What have you seen that works, and are you a believer in it?
So my current position, because I do believe that my opinion perhaps has changed.
Right.
If I was working very closely with the wellness team, I'm like, yes, we are making a difference. You know what I mean? Yeah, this is, I'm there, I'm all in. Where I am today, because of the huge disruption that COVID did in the workplace, I don't want to just say that by pulling off the shelf a wellness program and just rolling it out, it's really going to make a big difference for our employees. Would I benefit one or two employee that is, seeking just better living habits and stuff like that? Sure. But as a full-blown collective of, my 500 and something employees at the company that they're like, yeah, we're seeing a difference, I'm not sure. With that said, I feel that we as people leaders need to come in with many options, access, education, opportunities, learning opportunities, benefits to the workforce, because some people are going to benefit from it while others are going to get from here. So all to say, we need to be really diverse when it comes to our delivery of well-being in the workplace. So at this point, and some people may not agree with me, that's okay. But this is my position, and this is how I am actually positioning all of this in my current workplace. Well-being at IMA Medical Group is all-encompassing diversity, equity, and inclusion, because I want, again, people to feel seen, heard, included. It has a wellness aspect of it because I want you to feel that there is a work-life balance, overly utilized. And for some people, it may not even be work-life balance, but it could be work-life management.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That they have benefits where if they do need care, if they need mental health and stuff like that, it is available to them. That if they do need the time off, they're going to get paid during their time off and things like that. So for me, it's just this full-blown universe of I will work hard to make sure that there are several programs available to anybody, and that you know when how to access them based on where you are in life. And with that global, very diverse universe that we create for our employees to access all of this, then hopefully you can move the needle on ROI. Yes. Not just engagement, but ROI. Just one size does not fit all. And going back to our comments, having 4 different generations working side by side each other, one wellness program is just not going to meet the needs of a single mom in her 20s, a working mom in her 30s that have rent and mortgage, or, is the sandwich culture with elderly parents and child rearing kids, or a woman in her 40s who at this point is like, this is where I need to really invest in my retirement because, now this is happening in the next 15 to 20 years, or a woman in her 50s. So it's like, I need to catch up because, I haven't done enough of it. So one size does not fit all. And I do think that we just need to position it where we need to think about all the needs and just create enough programs, foundation. So based on your specific needs or where you are, you have access to education, technology, professionals, things like that.
It's a lot bigger than it used to be. So I think, wellness programs, 10 years ago, I'd see ridiculous things like we were working with a prospective client, a big bank, and they thought it was brilliant that they shipped everybody a jump rope. And I was like, this is the dumbest.
It's like 4,000 employees got a jump rope.
They showed it to me, and I'm like, this is like a child's jump rope too.
Yeah, it wasn't even big enough for us to.
And I was like, that was their idea of wellness. They thought it was brilliant. And now kind of what I'm hearing you say as well is these kind of wellness, I've seen them expand a lot more in the past 5 years to mental wellness, to a more robust EAP program, to the legal, to the 401k consulting, you know what I mean? So it's been more of like a mental and family wellness program rather than the silly things that healthcare plans used to try to do.
Yeah, walking into work and you hand me a granola bar.
Yeah.
For a healthy snack for the day. You know what I mean?
Mission accomplished.
So very much stay away from that. And it's more about what I just said. Do we have the programs that meets the needs of all the generations that we have in our ecosystem?
One of the approaches that we've taken when our clients inquire about wanting to add a wellness program is we do mostly self-funded medical plans. So we look at the data. Like, what is the data telling us? Are there chronic conditions? Are there, like you said earlier, like having those numbers are really important to be able to sell a program or complete an initiative. So I'm curious because you do so many surveys and I'm sure you also have data. Do you ever see that the initiatives that would be supported by the data might be different than what employees actually want? Or do you normally see that, the data and the surveys are wanting the same things?
Oh, interesting question. I say interesting question because we just pushed a survey to the business about interest on employee resource groups. And, anecdotally, I'm like, yeah, we want to do that. And then the survey came back and I'm like, oh,
why
no.
does no one else want to do this?
I'm like, oh, no, we're not doing that. Like there's enough interest in our employees saying, I'm too busy.
Yeah.
I don't have time for that. We must respect that. So I say that because, yes, at times aligns. At times it's like this beautiful alignment of we've invested in our leaders' effectiveness, and we can see it on our engagement survey by 4%. Like literally that is specific, and that just makes me smile. And then there are other things that they're like, all right, what are going to be our strategies for DEI next year? And they're like, employee resource groups. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
Perfect.
Let's go find out if that's really what the employees want. And we're like, oh, no, we're not doing that. They don't have time for that. And that's what we heard loud and clear. You know what I mean? So it may have been like a small group, that wants to get together. And it goes back to that comment that I made about, all right, well, it sounds like there's a small group that is interested in creating one. How about if we're nimble? We'll give them an opportunity to get together. Yep. And maybe that will be the start of something, and others will see. And then, but at this point, this is just a small group.
Yeah, this is micro.
Exactly. So all to say, surveys at times are an eye-opener. And that's why it's important to hear the voice of the employee.
Voice of the people.
Yeah, continuously. Yeah.
I love it.
It's an interesting time to be in HR.
Yeah.
And I mean, HR is also like this all-encompassing position where obviously it's the human aspect, but then you get into so much legal and compliance and technology. And all those things are just fundamental to making the business actually operate.
Right.
It's wild.
I always am so intrigued when I get an opportunity to speak with a human resource professional that's at the strategic level, because I know when we were building our business early on, Donovan is very much like the CEO, the financials, that part of the business, right? And then I was very much like the people and the client experience and making everybody feel good. And I feel like we were, very blessed in a lot of ways that we came together in a partnership to do that, because I don't know a lot of people like you, for example, that can do both, that can, be in the numbers, be in the data, be in the KPIs, but also speak as the voice of the people. So I think you have a very unique skill set. I really feel like your role is the difference maker in businesses going to the next level. And I really hope that a lot of businesses who are listening will invest in these roles, develop their people, or go find people like you that are already developed, because it's so important.
Agree. I think that in my industry, my role or in my career as HR professional, and just people leader, just in general, it certainly sends a message. Once you learn the HR role, who does it report to? And for those companies that the HR role reports to the CEO, it certainly sends a message that that particular leader does value the people aspect of things. And as they are making business decisions, that they will be informed by the people aspect of things. With that said, there's many organizations, and some successful, where the leader, that HR person, reports to the CFO.
That was my next question. What message does that send?
So ultimately, to all your HR professionals and for your entrepreneurs, when they're saying, who do I have my HR person reporting to? Because ideally, you may, as a CEO, may or may not be hearing the voice of the employee.
Which will show up in turnover,
key
in
stakeholder
dissatisfaction.
Group.
Yeah.
It's a key stakeholder group. So unless you have internal processes where you're still hearing the story and stuff like that, then it's a gap.
Right.
It's certainly a gap.
So the last question to wrap up our show today is, if you had to put into words what your ethos is, your driving force, the thing that makes you get up in the morning, what is it?
This has changed throughout the years, but I tell you that what motivates me today is to continue to build a strong culture where people feel like they are heard and seen, where they are walking into a workplace where they know I have somebody that has my back, and you will invest in me. So the day that I walk out of this place, I'm going to be a better professional because I've worked here, and also a place where I can thrive. So we do have an environment where I feel empowered that if something's broken, I can fix it and nobody's coming back. It's coming out for me and stuff like that. So that's what motivates me. I'm passionate about just the intricate world of healthcare and also human capital strategies. But ultimately, it's all about the employee experience and the culture that we are building every day.
When you think about American workers, there's really no bigger responsibility than your role. Or even when, as a business owner, like I know for me, the greatest responsibility as an entrepreneur is employing other people. And you kind of alluded to that earlier, saying like nobody forgets who gave them that job opportunity or took a chance on them, right? Like the development of others, it's just such an honor. And I think it's just such an under-recognized critical aspect to an organization, or at least a growing organization. The ones that have grown and kind of went through those challenges, they know that it's super important and they have people like you. But thank you so much. Where can our guests, everybody listening, get in touch with you, follow more of your content?
Yeah, definitely on LinkedIn. I try to certainly post things on LinkedIn where it really shows the culture that we live at IMA Medical Group day in and day out. So yeah, that's where you'll find me.
Perfect. Well, to our listeners, I know that I have felt like this is one of the more tangible interviews that we've had, real good examples for HR professionals who are moving up in their careers. So thank you, Karla, for being here.
Thank you for having me.